welcome you to this special edition of D2 Tuesday on National D2 Day. I was able to get that alliteration out on the first take, and I'm very proud of that. And I'm also very proud to talk Division II. My name is Victor Anderson. Coming up on today's special episode, we are going to look at some of the top 10 teams in Division II. We're going to break those polls down once again. And we got two head coaches joining us on this special D2 Day edition of the podcast. We're going to talk to Mike Shehorn, the head coach of the number 10 ranked Wilmington Wildcats. And we're going to talk to the head coach of the number 6 Mississippi College Lady Choctaws, Brook O'Hare. They will both be joining us coming off impressive victories this past week. Mississippi College taking a wild series over Alabama Huntsville, and Wilmington knocking off Division I foe Delaware State to start their 2024 campaign. Plus, we got some awards that were announced that we're going to show some love to and highlight some key matchups that will be taking place in the Division II landscape. Very important. Make sure you follow In the Circle on our YouTube channel. Subscribe, turn on those notifications. That way you don't miss a single episode of D2 Tuesday. My phone is blowing up with requests for coaches left and right. So trust us, folks. We are getting you in the thick of it for the Division II season in 2024 as everyone tries to make their way back to Longwood, Florida, and the D2 National Championship Festival. Now, let's take a look at some of the national awards that were released by the NFCA after our podcast came out on Tuesday. We have co-players of the week for the NFCA. First of all, Emma Bryce from West Florida. 6-game stretch last week. She went 12 of 24, 8 extra base hits, 5 of them were home runs, 10 RBIs, 11 runs scored. She started the week with a career-high 4 RBIs in a win over Columbus State when she went 3 for 5 in that game. Then she had 5 multi-hit performances in that 6-game stretch, scored multiple times on 4 occasions. And she took on Georgia Southwestern, where the other co-player of the week resides, which we'll talk about in just a moment. And she had 3 home runs as West Florida split a doubleheader versus Valdosta State. The Fighting Ashley McLeans are 9-4 on the season. You look at the losses, you get run ruled to start the season against North Georgia, the Gulf Shores Invitational. They lose in 5 to Nova Southeastern. They were supposed to play St. Leo, but Mother Nature had other ideas. We mentioned their split versus Valdosta State. They lost game 1 in run rule fashion, bounced back to split game 2, 6-4 in Valdosta against the Blazers. And the Argos have won 4 in a row, very quietly. Knocked out Tusculum, Columbus State, Newberry, and beat Georgia Southwestern 19-9 in 5 innings. An important series for West Florida this weekend. They travel to Livingston to take on number 13 West Alabama, the Tigers, with the highest ranking in program history this weekend. So an opportunity for the Argos to get themselves right to start Gulf South Conference play in 2024. And the stretch that they have coming up for West Florida is going to be tricky, which is always the case in the Gulf South Conference. They have the 3-game set at West Alabama. They get a home doubleheader versus Spring Hill. They host Alabama Huntsville next weekend in Pensacola. They have a midweek doubleheader versus Berry. And then the 2 weekends from now, they travel to Mississippi College to take on upcoming guest Brook O'Hare in the currently number 6 ranked team in the nation. So West Florida trying to get themselves back in postseason consideration in 2024. And they're off to a very strong start thanks to the bat of Emma Bryce. I referenced they beat Georgia Southwestern 19-9. There they knocked off Zoe Willis, who was the other NFCA National Player of the Week. Willis went 5 for 8. 4 of those hits, she took a leisurely stroll around the bases with the home run and had a slugging percentage of .2250 for the week. She drove in 11 and had 6 walks for a ridiculous .786 on-base percentage. She hit 2 of those home runs versus Point, including a grand slam. She homered in 3 of the 4 games she had that week. The other home runs coming against Newberry in the aforementioned matchup versus West Florida. And it marks the first time that a Georgia Southwestern player was honored by the NFCA in program history. So congratulations to the senior for getting that award. Georgia Southwestern, they're trying to find themselves in a groove. They're 7-7 on the season, but if you look at their schedule, played Emory, beat Emory, ruled Emory-Riddle to start the season. Lost 3 straight to Florida Tech, Rollins, and Emory-Riddle at the Emory-Riddle Classic. They won a pair of games at the Charger Chillout, beat Lincoln Memorial and Miles. They lost to Alabama, Huntsville, Mississippi College, but then found themselves on a mini 3-game streak. All of them 8-0 victories versus Newberry Point and Tusculum. Memphis, they lost versus West Florida. And then they split a doubleheader versus Montevideo. They got run-ruled 9-0 in game 1, but came back to beat the Falcons 6-1 to split that doubleheader. They will begin their conference play in the Peach Belt versus Columbus State, the regular season champions, at home for a 3-game set starting this Friday. And then they go to Auburn-Montgomery for a midweek doubleheader and then go to Augustana as a part of an 8-game road stretch for the Hurricanes. And then he got a doubleheader at home versus West Alabama on March the 12th. And then they take on who we presume will be still the number 1 team in the nation, the unanimous number 1, by the way, defending national champion North Georgia, comes a call-in on March 15th and 16th for a 3-game Peach Belt Series. Pitcher of the week, and richly deserved, by the way, is Riley Lingerfelt from a program that not many people talk about, Converse. Riley, all she did last week was set the school record for strikeouts in a single game twice. Throw the first no-hitter and perfect game in school history. So here's Riley's week in a nutshell. First, she has a no-hitter. First, she strikes out a school record 11 hitters in their victory versus Shaw. First of all, she picks up a school record 11 strikeouts. Then she goes into versus Shaw, strikes out 13 of the 15 hitters she faces to get the perfect game. And by the way, the 11 strikeouts she had versus St. Andrews, that was a new school record. And by the way, she picked up a save versus Lincoln, came in, pitched 3 innings, picked up 6 strikeouts in that performance. So, 13 innings of work, 30 strikeouts. Opponents were held to a 136 batting average, and not really a surprise for what she did. She was naturally and richly honored with the Conference Carolina's Pitcher of the Week award. So the Valkyries, thanks to that pitching performance, they have won 4 in a row. 3 of those wins have come via run rule fashion. They have outscored their opponents during this 4-game stretch by a dominant score of 47-3. They had a doubleheader with St. Andrews, beat Shaw, and beat Lincoln University. They have a doubleheader versus Tusculum on the road. They will start Conference Carolina's play on March 13th as they take on North Greenville in Spartanburg, South Carolina. They got doubleheaders with at Coker, Georgia College, UC Aiken, prior to them starting conference play. So our congratulations to those 3 young ladies, Emma Bryce, Zoe Willis, and Riley Lingerfeld, being recognized by the NFCA for their outstanding efforts last weekend in Division II. Now, one story that I saw on my timeline last night that I had to mention on this special was what Erskin did last night versus Augusta. They get dominated in game 1, 13-6. It looked like they were going to get run ruled. They trailed 8-0 after 2.5 innings. They stormed back. They cut the lead down to 10-6, but Augusta put up a field goal in the top of the 7th to push things even further to take the win 13-6. And game 2 looked like it's going to be more of the same. Augusta led 7-0 after 3.5 innings. Erskin chipped away, got 2 runs in the bottom of the 4th, got 2 runs in the bottom of the 5th, and then put up 6 in the bottom of the 7th, capped off by a Kenzie Eagleman walk-off grand slam to cap off the 10-1 rally as Erskin picked up the victory and salvaged the doubleheader split 10-7. And for those who watched that game and saw it in person, I'm sure that was a jolt of energy and excitement to see that team battle back, come from behind, score 10 unanswered runs, especially how the way game 2 started. It appeared it was going to be a microcosm of what happened in game number 1. But the 7th inning started with Brook Patterson getting on base along with Kaylee Odom and Peyton Rabon. A single to load the bases with 1 out. Erskin brought the winning run to the plate, and that was in the form of Ingram. Ingram got a base hit to score Ellie Rapson to make it 7-5. Haley Patterson got a bases loaded walk, and then that put the Fleet with the winning run in scoring position, and that set the stage for Eagleman to hit a walk-off grand slam dead center field to get themselves the doubleheader split over Augusta by the score of 10-7. So a tip of the cap to Erskin for their performance and getting themselves the win. Kaylee Odom also, by the way, freshman, 4 1/3 perfect innings to get themselves the opportunity to get that doubleheader split versus Augusta last night. And then Erskin will be back in play at Coker Saturday afternoon at 1 p.m. for their first trip to Hartsville since 2019. Now, the top 25 in Division II had some changes. A couple of the biggest jumpers in the poll this week were Wingate and Colorado Christian. Now, Wingate, they come in number 14 in the latest poll. And the Bulldogs, they split a doubleheader versus Francis Marion. They lost the first game of the doubleheader 2-0, bounced back and got the doubleheader split 2-1. With Wingate, 13-4 in the season, they already have a very strong resume. They lost their first 2 games to Angelo State and Texas Tyler. And since then, they've won 13 of the last 15. They have wins against Washburn. They got a doubleheader versus Mount Olive. 2 wins in St. Augustine as part of the Old Coast Classic versus then number 18 St. Leo. They dominated Erskin as part of a 4-0 weekend at the Bearcat Fleet Invitational. And they'll be back in action this Saturday versus UNC Pembroke, take on Georgian Court in an intra-regional showdown on Tuesday before they start SAC play on March the 2nd versus Virginia Wise and at Newberry on March the 6th. And when you look at their schedule, Wingate, you know they're going to be right there in the mix. They always seem to be. The doubleheader the part of the schedule I'm looking forward to, it's going to be March 20th, March 23rd. Doubleheaders versus Lenore Ryan on the 20th. And then March 23rd, they host Anderson. And then they got the SAC tournament, in which they're kind of adapting what the Peach Belt is. So they have those 2 pods, and then the 2 winners will meet in the best 2 out of 3 SAC Championship Series with the winner to get the automatic bid to the NCAA tournament. We'll give you more on that as the season progresses forward. But Wingate certainly a team to watch in the top 25. Another team to look out for is Colorado Christian. Colorado Christian, number 11, 12-1 on the season, dominated their 4-game series versus Adams State. All 4 games by way of run rule and dominated them all 4 matchups. Only allowed a total of 8 runs during that 4-game stretch and had games in which they scored 12, 14, 14, and 15 runs. And as a result, Kenzie Middleton was named the RMAC Player of the Week. All she did in that 4-game series versus Adams State was go have drive-in 9, had 8 hits, 3 triples, hit a home run, did not have a strikeout. 5 of those RBIs came in their opener of the 4-game series versus Adams State, a 12-2 victory. You look at Colorado Christian, they only have 1 blemish on the season, 12-1. That 1 blemish was a wild 12-10 game versus St. Mary's. St. Mary's has picked up some solid wins to start the 2024 campaign, and they have a win, just like Wingate has marquee wins versus St. Leo. Colorado Christian has a signature win that opening weekend at the Concordia Kickoff Classic versus Steph Ewing, and then number 7 ranked Cal State San Marcos. And you figure that Colorado Christian will be running through the RMAT. They'll have to deal with Colorado Mesa, but that series is going to be at home March 2nd to March the 3rd. They continue RMAC play with the 4-game series at Fort Lewis in Durango this Saturday and Sunday. Keep an eye out on Colorado Christian. That's a team to look out for if you want somebody who can maybe try and sneak up and maybe get into the South, maybe disrupt that Lone Star Conference chokehold of the South Central region. Now, a team that just cracked the top 25 for the first time this year is Angelo State. The Lady Ramblers, 15-1 on the season. Their low loss came to then number 19 Rogers State as part of the D2 First Pitch Invitational, but since then they have won 11 in a row. You look at their resume, knocked off then number 17 Wingate to start the season, beat Central Washington, beat Colorado Mesa, have 2 wins versus an improved Regents team, and they are 6-0 in Lone Star play. They swept Midwestern State, swept Texas Permian Basin, but the real test starts this weekend. They go to Tyler to take on number 8 Texas Tyler, and the Patriots stinging off of that 3-game sweep versus West Texas A&M on the road last weekend. So you know Texas Tyler wants to avoid going 1-5 or possibly 0-6 to start Lone Star play. Again, the Lone Star Conference, every team plays a 3-game series with their conference foes. The top 8 records make it to the Lone Star Tournament. The best record will get the hosting rights for the Lone Star Tournament, which will be taking place on May 2nd through the 4th. Now, with Angelo State, analyzing their schedule, big series on the weekends each of the next 2 weekends. They got Texas Tyler, as I referenced, on the road this Saturday and Sunday. And then next weekend, they come home to San Angeles, Texas to take on Oklahoma Christian. They got a midweek 3-game set with Texas Women's in the middle. They host Texas A&M Kingsville. The Javelinas off to a strong start this season. They got and they end the season at Lubbock Christian, April 13th and 14th. They have a bye week before their matchup versus number 2 West Texas A&M. Both of those series on the road. The West Texas A&M series, April 26th and 27th. Just keep an eye out for Angelo State. That series versus West Texas A&M could determine who gets to host that Lone Star Conference tournament and get the regular season championship. And who knows? Maybe determines who becomes the number 1 seed, or at least will be in a driver's seat to be the number 1 seed in the South Central Regional when the tournament rolls around. Now, back to the top 10. We highlighted this on Tuesday. North Georgia is still the unanimous number 1. West Texas A&M, who we referenced a little bit just a few seconds ago, they jump up 1 spot to number 2. The number 3 team is the University of Tampa. Cal State San Marcos jumps up a spot there, number 4. Grand Valley State is at number 5. And at number 6 in the latest poll, their highest ranking in Division II history is Mississippi College. The Lady Choctaws off to a 10-1 start, their best start as a Division II program, and off a exciting 3-game series where they took 2 out of 3 versus Alabama Huntsville. All 3 games dramatic, coming down to the late innings. 2 of those games decided in extra innings. But head coach Brook O'Hare wouldn't have it any other way. And yesterday, I had the honor and privilege to talk to the head coach of the Lady Choctaws about that series and life in the Gulf South Conference and building that Mississippi College program from where she was when she first started it in her 18th season. Here now, Mississippi College head coach Brook O'Hare in his special D2 Day edition of D2 Tuesday. And joining us here on this very special D2 Tuesday, she is the head coach of Mississippi College, fresh off a huge series win versus Gulf South rival UAH Alabama Huntsville, and they got another big series coming up this weekend on the road versus Auburn Montgomery. Of course, I'm referring to the head coach, Brook O'Hare, joining me here on this special edition of D2 Tuesday. Coach, thanks so much for taking out some time. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. Thanks for having me.
Well, needless to say, your weekend last weekend was drama-filled with your battle versus Alabama Huntsville, but we'll talk about that shortly. Just your overall thoughts on your team so far this season with the national recognition, only losing one game so far. How has been the mood and the energy with your team so far as we approach the end of the opening month of the season?
Yeah, they're excited just to play the game. That's one of the biggest things that we put emphasis on is just to make sure that you show up every day and love what you're doing and love the people that you're around and enjoy it because, it's taken away from you after a couple of years. So they love playing. They love coming to practice and more so than that, they just like being around each other and creating memories every day. And that, I think, goes into the style of play that we have because they truly try to do the very best they can for the person beside them.
And I feel like, Coach, it's been kind of building with your program over the last few years since your trip when you made to the tournament a few years ago when we saw you in Melbourne before everything happened. It feels to me, Coach, that now I know we're early on in the season, but this team is hungrier and more driven than the team last year that won 40-plus games, but then fell short in the regionals to, ironically enough, Alabama Huntsville when you played in Florida.
Yeah, I think the hunger is probably the same, believe it or not. Last year's team was amazing. They fought like crazy, and they were super close too. And when the season ended, it was heartbreaking for all of us to have to say, goodbye to everybody, which is what you want. We love the family environment and all that. So that was hard for us. This year's team comes across a little bit more of they know they can do it. And we have a couple people we picked up that just has made our team a little bit better, especially in the circle. We've picked up some more pitchers, and that's been really key for us this season so far. And we've had a lot of kids that have stepped into roles that are now starting roles that last year they were a role player coming off the bench. And so they're excited to have that opportunity. And everybody right now is just doing their job, nothing more, nothing less, just focusing on doing their job to help out the team win.
And when you have that mentality, Coach, do you find it a lot easier for you and your staff to kind of implement what you want with your program when everybody understands what their role is and they're being put in positions to star in their particular role no matter what it is?
Oh, yes, sir. I think that's massive for us. We actually had a team meeting before our first trip on the road this season to open it up, and the meeting was strictly about that. Like, this team is full of talent, and there's so many different options of things that we can do, and we can strategize more so with how we can win a ball game with this team more so than we did with last year's team. And so that's going to make us more of a complete team. The issue then becomes, can you buy into that as a team, as an individual? Because it will change throughout the season. And so far, if you look at our lineup and you look at changes we've made, whether it be the start of a game or in the middle of a game or the end of the game, everybody has done something to help contribute to that. No matter if it's helping us catch a bullpen when you're not a catcher, but we got to get our pitchers warmed up, or if it's a pitch runner or pitch hitter or relief pitcher, it doesn't matter what it is. They've done a very good job at just staying focused on doing the best they can, whatever role they're given at that particular moment. Because even the roles that you think that you may have in the beginning of the year or the beginning of a series can change with this team,
right? Because
our talent is more from start to bottom rather than just the starters.
And not only that, when you thrive in the role that you're given, you get provided opportunities for an even bigger role down the line, but you have to prove that you can star in that particular role first before you're given those other opportunities as the season progresses forward.
That's correct. 100% correct. And that's the thing. We've got kids, they come down here and work all day long on their own or just getting in extra work on something else. And it's kids that aren't playing a lot of times. And of course the kids that are starting, they're doing it as well. But, everybody wants to just make sure that they're ready for any moment that they're given to be able to help this team win. And that's a big difference for us right now on why we're being so successful because you never know who's going to be the game changer for you at that particular game. And it's really incredible to watch These kids just push each other and encourage each other, no matter if somebody's going in their spot or somebody's pitch hitting for them or whatever it may be. Everybody's just for the team, doing what the team needs to do to win a ball game, and they're putting in extra work to be able to make that happen. So we're very proud of them.
And it really came into fruition with that dramatic series you had recently versus Alabama Huntsville. Every time I see you two programs play, you and Coach Studeman, it always seems to come down to the last pitch, and it needs to go to extra innings. But that series in general, back and forth, all three games decided by one run. The mood of your team after losing that tough game in the opener, 9-8, where you had it was back and forth each way. What was the mood of your team after you lost that opener in the series, after battling back, taking the lead, and then you fall in that 8 innings to the Chargers?
It was just to go back and attack. They knew they could do it, and they just knew they had to fight through the whole game and finish it. But their energy level was high, their mentality was strong, and they wanted to go play them again right then. So I knew that the next day going forward was going to be a good match on both sides. Look, UAH, in my mind, they're always one of the best teams in the country. Very well coached. The players play the game right, very respected, and we respect that program just tremendously. And it is always a dogfight, we feel like, which makes it very fun for us and also very nerve-wracking, right?
Yeah.
But that series was probably the most, energetic, stressful, emotional series that our program's probably ever been a part of, or even that I've ever witnessed, just with every single game going down to the last at-bat or the last inning. It was really fun to watch, and it was really fun to see both teams compete because each team had to fight tooth and nails to get a win.
And game 2 of that series, of game 1 of that doubleheader in particular, again, it almost started similarly like game 1 of the series, where you go back and forth. Huntsville comes back, they tie it up in the top of the 7th, and you go to the 11th inning, and next thing you know, Shelby Samples hits a 2-run walk-off bomb to give you game 1 of the doubleheader and to even the series. To have someone like Shelby come through for you time and time again in those situations, how much of a comfort is it for you, Coach, to have somebody like her and others around her drive in those particular situations?
It's great. Look, Shelby's one of those kids too that nothing gets to her. Like, she gets more amped up when the pressure's on. She wants to bat in her hands, and she's done that for us time and time again throughout her freshman year and going into this season so far. I think she hit the walk-off the second game and the third game for us this weekend against Huntsville. But she's just that kid. When she's in the box, she's zoned in and locked in to do her job. And that's what we preach, is just get in the box and do your job, nothing more, nothing less. And you're right, we've got kids all up and down the lineup that, honestly, when we're in situations, we always know they can get the job done. Whether it happens or not, you never know. This is a game of failure. But the confidence that we have in our kids hitting is extremely high, and they have the same amount of confidence in themselves.
And then you win that game. We mentioned the first one, a doubleheader, and then game 2, more of a pitcher's duel. Comes down again late, and Shelby once again with the walk-off base hit to give your team the series. And I think for folks who understand playing in the Gulf South Conference, there's no breathers in your league with Huntsville, West Florida, West Alabama, who's off to one of their best starts in the program history. Valdosta, you get UAM this weekend on the road. There is no such thing as a quote-unquote easy weekend in your league, because you have to be at your best every single weekend against that kind of competition.
Every weekend. We've always said this is one of the toughest, if not the toughest conference in the country, just because it doesn't matter if you haven't won one game all year long or if you're undefeated, that one team can beat you. I mean, you really have to show up and play. And you're right, there is no breathing room. We're playing Huntsville, we're up a couple of runs, and we're thinking, okay, we can breathe, and the next pitch, we're back tied. You just can't do that in this conference, which I think is great for us because it always prepares us for postseason play. And, you're not going to become the best unless you play the best.
Right.
And we don't like a lot of easy games. And so we love the competition. We love this conference. The coaches are great, the athletes are great, but it is a battle day in and day out. So if you love softball and you love watching games, our conference are games you want to watch.
And not only that, but just the environments and the fan bases that come to those games are some of the best in Division II. So if you haven't seen a Gulf South game, folks, I strongly recommend you do so. Hey, maybe if you're Alabama, go up this weekend, watch AUM and Mississippi College, for example.
Yeah, just cheer for the Choctaws.
That touche. That's yes. Pick your rooting side accordingly, ladies and gentlemen. You were in your 18th year as head coach of Mississippi College, and you've been with this program being as a Division III program in the NCCAA and the transition to Division II. Right. You've seen a lot of things with your program growing from where it was when you took over to where it is right now. What's been the biggest thing that you've seen change with your program from when you became the head coach to where they are right now?
I think the biggest is the athletes just keep getting a little bit better. They keep getting stronger, faster. They understand the game a little bit more. And honestly, the love of the game has grown a lot from where we are. In our location, things have changed from early on. Fast pitch not being a major deal around here to where now it is. And so that's been a cool growth just in the fan base and people just getting excited about hearing about how the game of softball is being played even in the state of Mississippi. So that's been a big one for us here within 18 years is the growth of the sport has been tremendous. And then for Mississippi College, just the support from administrators, and we've added some staff members that have been great. No matter if they're volunteers or GAs or assistants, that has become a lot better for us, which entails the players get more instruction and gets more attention, so therefore we can develop them a little bit faster as well. But I think the growth of the sport and the love of the game has grown a lot in my 18 years here, and that's really been a big deal for people around here.
And you reference your staff with the continuity that you have with Lee Streetman, who's in her 7th season, Darren Harmon, and court you got Brook Fagan as your GA for this year. The staff is just as important to the success of the team as the coaches and the players. And you have assembled yourself, Coach, a very strong staff who provides that, it kind of fills in those holes and fills in those pieces to the puzzle when those players need it.
That's correct. Look, we laugh all the time because we're all different in our own ways, but then we all coach for the same reasons. And that really makes us have a special staff, and we're all good at certain aspects of the game more so than the next person, which, again, brings in a lot of, just options and suggestions of what we could do and how we could do things throughout the week to prepare for teams and things. But it's really the personality I think that really helps our staff, and just the love of being around the kids and growing relationships with the kids and how we do that differently. And it builds confidence in those kids too, because we get to see them as people more so than just athletes, and therefore they want to play for us, and that means a lot to us. And it also allows us, honestly, we're a Christian school, we're faith-based, and we love the Lord, and that's something that is above all, that is most important for us, is to be able to help kids grow in their faith, and we've got a great staff that does that too. And then it goes into, your academics in school and just growing as a human being. And our coaches are tremendous at that part. If nothing else, they are unbelievable at that. And then you start breaking down just their abilities to teach these kids. And because we're so different, all these kids can come to us about different things. And it's funny because, we're 10 years apart pretty much with every coach. So it starts at like 50-something and ends at like 20-something, okay?
Yes.
And the 50-year-old Darren, okay, he's like the biggest kid of the staff. And it just kind of trickles down. But our environment coaching is one that I would never trade for the world. And I think our players absolutely love playing for people who just like seeing them happy and like building them up as, stronger women. But yeah, my goal is just to keep all 4 of them for as long as I can. I'm just, hoping that never ends. But so that's what we're going for.
And I think what's so unique about your situation, Coach, that you highlighted is that you have coaches in different stages in life that the players can go to and ask them a question, not necessarily about softball related, but anything, and they can provide their own wisdom and their own experiences to not only teach a player what to do in a certain situation on the field, but they have a question about something off the field, they can provide those life experiences to better them as young women and better help serve the Lord as well.
That's correct. And I think that's very important. A lot of times coaches, we get so focused on just winning a ball game, but at the end of the day, there's a lot more to it than just that. We've always said that our first responsibility is try to build them in their faith. That's first. Second is build them into strong women and let them know that, they're good no matter what life tells them, and just be there and love on them, right? And just build relationships with them. And if we can get a team full of people that understand that we love them no matter what happens on the field, the reality is the culture becomes better. And when the culture is better and everybody plays for each other and everybody understands that, winning ends up taking care of itself. It always does. It always has. And then you can leave MC loving it, right, and having memories forever. And we love coming to work. I mean, this is a job that's very stressful. And it's very hard on the players and the coaches. And so the more we can laugh and cut up, but still work hard and go after things that we know we can accomplish, the more we all enjoy. And the more you enjoy something that you're doing in life, the more successful you're going to be in it. And so that's just something we attempt to thrive on every day and really try to live out in our lives and throughout this program.
Mississippi College head coach Brook O'Hare joining us here in this special edition of D2 Tuesday. And what's remarkable, Coach, and I was kind of analyzing things before I started our interview, your team has been hitting the cover off the ball, hitting .316, but McCauley is off to by some standards, a slow start. And all she did last year was win Conference Player of the Year honors for the Gulf South Conference.
Right.
How phenomenal is it for you to know that your team is still playing at that level so far, knowing that McCall is going to eventually find that form and make a deep lineup even deeper and even more dangerous?
Oh yeah, no doubt. McCall's definitely not doing what she's used to doing. But it's not necessarily just her swing, with what she's accomplished last year and even the years before. The reality is she's not going to get a lot of good pitches.
Right.
And she's lined out a ton, and it's like every time she squares a good pitch up, it just goes right to somebody unless it goes over the fence or something like that. But when the balls start falling for her and she really gets more pitches throughout at bats, it's really going to be dangerous for herself, but also for our lineup. And we got a couple other kids too that same thing. They just haven't quite started to get on fire yet, but it's slowly coming. And when they do that, it could be real nice. But it's great to have people. It goes back to, you've got to trust the team behind you too, because it's not about what you do. It's about what everybody does. Mm-hmm. And our team's done a really good job of different people coming through each series or each game really that we're playing, whether it's a slapper who this is the first year starting and she's doing incredible, or if it's somebody who was a pitch hitter for us last year coming in doing great things. And we had a kid that came off the bench against Huntsville who hasn't got a hit yet this season, and we put her in to hit, and I think it was the bottom of the seventh, and she got a hit up the middle, which then led up to Shelby coming in and getting the walk-off. So it's just about making sure that you understand it's not about you taking the pressure off of you and allowing your teammates to help you out when things aren't perfect.
And when it's always nice to know that you have players like, not only with the names like McCall and everyone else, but you can have somebody come in, get that critical hit, do your job, as you referenced earlier in the interview, and set the stage for everyone else to succeed. You mentioned your pitching staff and how you've added a couple of names with Madison Jenkins, Brooklyn Cannon, who have been strong, and Cameron Bailey, all with sub-2 ERAs. But again, all of them understanding their role and thriving and starring in those roles. It feels like we talk so much about your offense, but that your pitching staff doesn't get the proper recognition that it deserves, because they're just as big of a part as the team being where they are right now.
No, I agree. This is probably one of the best pitching staffs from top to bottom that, honestly, that we may have ever had. We've had some really strong ones in the past, but some of those had injuries, so those kids weren't able to really give their all and do what they can do, and some actually didn't get to finish. So with these four kids being healthy, they've been remarkable. And same thing, we talked to them early on about, the pitching staff and being ready to have different roles, whether you're a starter, relief, or closer sometimes even. You have to just be ready to do your part. And they have really bought into that, and they've done a tremendous job. I mean, we've had, we've got 2 transfers, obviously, from different schools last year coming into us this year. And they have improved from day one till last weekend. And it's phenomenal just to continue to see the growth of all of them and what they can do for us on the mound, because everything starts with the pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it starts with them, and a lot of times it ends with them. And they have set the tone for our defense. And because of that, our offense has been able to not have to produce as much as it did in previous years to be able to win a ball game. And so that kind of makes everything a little bit lighter as well, not as much pressure. But they have done a tremendous job of keeping kids off balance and getting us out of big holes. And when you've got pitchers who can do that, your defense automatically becomes better, right?
Right.
And Brooklyn and Madison and Cam, they've done a phenomenal job. Delaney had an excellent outing back in the tournament over in Albertville.
Mm-hmm.
But we're really excited about this pitching staff. They're really going to be special for us.
And that's a credit to what Coach Streetman has done, utilizing each of their strengths to make them great pitchers and then building them as the staff that you want them to see in the terms of having all 4 of them ready and available to give those different looks and keeping those opponents off balance. So it's a credit to what Coach Streetman has done in working with those pitchers both individually and collectively as a staff to put them in the best positions to be successful.
Oh, no doubt. Coach does a tremendous job of just taking care of all the pitchers. And not only that, but again, she builds really good relationships with them. And so just the communication back and forth within her and her staff is tremendous. And she can break pitchers down. She can build them up mentally. She can do whatever she needs to in order to make that kid better, which is great, right? Because a lot of times there's a struggle between kids understanding or not feeling their body or whatever it may be. But she really does a good job of building that relationship so she can communicate in the best way that's effective for that particular player. And then she speaks to them a lot just about making sure that you understand that it's a group effort no matter what we're doing.
Right.
And just to be ready for your name to be called and be ready to go get, the team and attack the team we're about to play. But she's an excellent pitching coach. And our kids absolutely love her. So we're thankful for her, no doubt.
Yeah, and I know she's going to be very vital in terms of what you're going to have in front of you this weekend. You go to Montgomery to take on AUM, and they always postseason team last year. They always a strong coach, especially Coach Wilkes, and she's taken over that program. What do you want to see from your team going into this weekend series to have the success that you want to build, that you are looking to build off of from what you did with versus Alabama Huntsville last weekend?
Sure. Yeah, for us, it's just playing our game. We don't put a whole lot of emphasis on who we're playing.
Right.
There's been times I don't even tell the team who we're playing or if they're ranked or what they're doing. Our big deal is we have to play our game. We have to know who we are, what type of hitter are we, what type of pitcher are we, what type of defense do we have, and no matter who it is, play your game and execute and do your job. It's that simple. Like, don't overdo any of that. And so for us, it's just going in, playing with energy. It's going in, and if you're supposed to hit a spot, hit the spot,
right. Make
your routine plays, go all out on defense, don't leave nothing on the field, be aggressive on the bases, and have quality at bats. And that is that simple. And if we can do that, it'll be a great weekend for us.
And since it is D2 day, as of the airing of this interview, Coach, what does it mean for you to have a program like Mississippi College with the great support from your administration, of course, the focus on being a servant of the Lord and not only serving your community? What does it mean to be with the Mississippi College and being a part of Division II in your perspective?
Well, I've been a part of 3 different levels: Division I, Division III, and Division II. And within all of those, I think the coolest thing about D2 is the fact that you can have really strong and great lifelong relationships with these student athletes. It's not strictly business all the time. And in Division II, you get to spend more time with the kids than what you do in Division III. So The competition level in Division II, especially in the Gulf South Conference, it's competitive, and I love competition. I love it. I eat it up.
Yes.
And so for me, I kind of get the best of both worlds. You get the competitive edge that you get in Division I play, but you also get the relationships that you get in Division III, but you get to build them even stronger. For me, all three levels were great. All of them were competitive. I played in the SEC. I coached in the ASC, which was back when you had UT Tyler and Louisiana College and Mississippi College and HBU. All of us were right there on the same side of the conference, and it was really strong. So it was always been competitive. But the relationship status between coaches and players is, for me, the best in Division II, and I absolutely love it.
One final thing, Coach, before we let you go. Understanding with what your team has done so far, how do you continue to keep them focused? I know you referenced it earlier about talking about this week and sometimes not mentioning who you're playing. How important is it for your team to keep them focused on what their goals are going to be down the road, which hopefully for you guys will be a return trip to the postseason and possibly going further if everything works out in your favor?
Yeah, again, for us, it may sound crazy to some, but we try not to even talk about that and think about that. For us, it's just to show up every day and get better. And again, do your job every day, get better every day. And if we can stick to just the process that goes along with that, then the outcome will be postseason play and how far can you go. But a lot of times if you put so much emphasis, or at least on teams that we've had, you put so much emphasis on postseason or winning a conference tournament or whatever it may be, the pressure comes along.
Right.
And then they start hearing outside sources. They start looking at social media. They start looking at stats. And then all of this other things start getting to them. And when that happens, you start to see a negative outcome. So for us, it's don't look at stats. Don't listen to people on the outside. Don't worry about who you're playing. Just do you. Just do you every day. Get better. Love what you're doing. Love being around each other. And let's go compete and try to win a ball game. And every ball game is just as important as the previous ball games and the future ball games. Focus where your feet are. Be where your feet are.
Yeah, if you do all those things, everything else will eventually take care of itself. Of course, Mississippi College Big Series this weekend versus Auburn Montgomery. Coach Brook O'Hare, thank you so much for taking out the time. Best of luck to you this weekend, and we certainly hope to talk to you down the road.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. Thank you.
And thanks again to Head Coach Brook O'Hare for joining us. Thanks again to Rake Weir, Assistant Athletic Director of Athletic Communications, for setting up that interview. We were a little concerned that we weren't able to get Coach O'Hare in time for the interview, but we were able to make things happen at the 11th hour. We certainly appreciate her taking out the time to talk to us about Mississippi College. And they're a program that we've kind of told you about for the last year and a half now, with them building to where they are right now, 10-1 on the season. And you heard my chat with her about McCall Lee, the reigning Gulf South Conference Player of the Year. For her to, by her standards, struggle with 2 home runs and 6 RBIs, but have players like Shelby Samples who hit those 2 walk-offs in that doubleheader to get them the series. Jordan LaFosse, 421 average with 3 home runs, 15 RBIs. Jenny Griggers, 382. Emily Rigney, 357. Cameron Eaton, 345. To go along with that pitching staff of Madison Jenkins, who's pitching, has a 1.75 ERA. She is 2-0. Brooklyn Cannon, 1.87 ERA. She is 2-0. Cameron Bailey, she's a 5-1 record with a 1.88 ERA, and everybody doing their job. This is a Mississippi College team who a lot of people think if they get the right draw, which is always kind of in quotation marks based, because you're likely going to see, like they saw last year, they had to play Alabama Huntsville twice in that Tampa regional, and maybe they may see them again. Who knows? We shall see how that handles itself out. They will take on Auburn Montgomery on the road on Saturday and Sunday as they resume Gulf South play. They'll go back out of conference versus Arkansas Monticello on Wednesday the 28th. They will have the bye week, and they have Alachua Baptist at home in Clinton before they go back into Gulf South play versus West Florida on March 8th and 9th. For more information, visit Go Choctaws, that's GOCHOCTAWS.com for the full schedule And, of course, the Gulf South Tournament will be taking place in Oxford, Alabama, May the 1st through May the 4th. So Mississippi College trying to get themselves back to the regionals and trying to get themselves to Longwood, a team that made it to Chattanooga last year and looking to make it back to Longwood this year is the number 10 ranked team in the nation, and that's the Wilmington Wildcats. Wilmington, off a banner season last year, won the CACC regular season and tournament championship, broke through that super regional class ceiling, knocking off Adelphi to make it to Chattanooga. A phenomenal season for head coach Mike Shehorn. Coach Shehorn, in his 13th season at the helm, a man who wears many hats at the Wilmington program. I had a chance to talk to the head Wildcat himself this past week about that opening win versus a Division I opponent and keeping everything focused on 2024, especially with a very big trip to Florida looming for his number 10 squad. Here now, Wilmington head coach Mike Shehorn on D2 Tuesday on a Thursday. And joining us on our D2 Day special, he is the head coach of Wilmington, who are fresh off an historic 2023 and aiming for bigger and better things in 2024. Of course, I'm speaking of head coach Mike Shehorn joining us right now. Coach, thank you for the time. How are you, sir?
I'm great. Thank you very much for having me.
We were kind of talking, Coach, a little bit before we got the interview started, and how nice it felt for you to not only get back on the field, but to knock off a Division I opponent in the process on your season opener. Just your overall thoughts on how your team looked. Granted, it was just one game against Delaware State, but your early impressions on this ball club after getting off to a victorious 2024.
Oh yeah, it was a lot of fun, and as we spoke earlier, like I said, it's nice to get on the field and play a different opponent, especially this early in the year here in the Northeast with the weather. So yeah, it was great, great opportunity for us to play, an in-state school, a Division I school, not far from our campus. So and then to get the win was really icing on the cake for us, and was really exciting. Really, really happy with how our team performed.
And I know with your team, with last year and all the success that you had, which we'll talk about a little bit later on, how important was it for you and your staff to kind of let this team understand that what you did last year was nice and it was good to celebrate, but it's all about creating your own story for this season and getting off to the start that you did?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's key for us, and we definitely, we talked about that in our first meeting of the year. We kind of, hit on it. We let the returners have one more kind of a little bit of a celebration about it and share some of their words of how that season went with the incoming kids, the transfers, and the freshmen, and then we moved on from it, and we've kind of left that behind us now. We're all about this season and taking it, day by day, just trying to get better, stay healthy, get the chemistry where we need it, and really just prepare for a season.
And I think with this team, Coach, you bring back a lot of players that you referenced from last year's ball club. How was it easier for you and your staff to kind of let the returners kind of set the tone for how you want this team to look for 2024?
Yeah, I mean, it was, we do have, like you said, we returned all of our starters from last year. And definitely they took the bull by the horn. They set the tone right away and just kind of, let the newcomers know, the type of program we are, what we expect from them in the classroom, in the community, in the weight room, in practice, all those things. And they've really done a great job of kind of doing that and kind of setting the example and leading the way, which is huge for us. Allows us as coaches to not have to focus on some of that, where we could spend more time focusing on, the game itself.
And I know with your ball club, you played Delaware State, D1 school. You get the win against them. You beat them 4-2. How proud were you of your team to not only to get the victory in that season opener, but to do it against an in-state rival and a Division I school at that, given the weather that you've had to deal with in the Northeast and started things a lot earlier than you normally would.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, again, it came down to some kids that are veterans on our team that did a lot of things for us last year. Kids like Lexi Moore, who had a great year last year. She had a great day against Delaware State, with several hits, several stolen bases, scored some runs. Emma Zimmerman, junior catcher who's been in our program, had a huge 2 RBI single. To put us ahead. So, seeing those kids that contributed last year, step up again this year and come up in some clutch situations and were able to get it done was really exciting for us as coaches. I know they were excited as well, but it was huge for that day and to help get that win.
And especially with Delani Shehorn pitching 4 2/3 innings, getting a win for you with 5 strikeouts and not allowing a walk. Kylie comes in, gets the final 8 outs, pitches the final 7 outs to get your team to victory. In 2023, I know a lot of success for your team. We kind of highlighted it before we brought you on, Coach. Was there a particular moment last year that you kind of felt that this could be the team that could kind of break through that door and make it to the national championship? Because you've been getting close a couple of years, get to super regionals. You keep running into a Delphi who has a phenomenal program. Was there any particular moment during last season where you felt this team was going to be the team to kind of break through?
I mean, it's one of those things where as a coach, or a fan of a sport, you have this vision and you hope that all these things kind of fall into place and your vision becomes a reality. Mm-hmm. And I think it was for us, it was more about the year before that when we played at Delphi in the Super Regional. We won the first game and they came back and won the next 2. Mm-hmm. And then we, seeing how that happened and how our kids responded and what they did in the off season, and then coming back in the fall and the type of shape that they were in and the level of focus, I think was a big part of that. But then last year when we went down to Florida and played against, arguably some of the best teams in the country in the Sunshine State Conference, mm-hmm. and we were able to get splits down there. Obviously you want to win every game you play, but coming from not playing a single game to going down to Florida and playing those teams who already have 10, 15 games under their belt, to be able to come out of there with a 500 record was huge for us. And that was kind of a little bit of an idea, gave us a little bit of an idea of where we thought we could be. But then we needed to stay healthy. We needed to stay together as a team. I believe we needed to go through some tough times, which we did, with some of our conference opponents and some of our regional opponents throughout the year. But I think really, for me, what really made me believe that this team could do it, could make that run, was when we hosted the regional tournament and the way that we were able to win those games, to win that side of the bracket, to get back to the super regional, just the way they did it. They did it in a way where they handled themselves very professionally. They responded to the adversity. They never panicked. And they came up with those clutch hits in those tough situations. And that really made me believe, like, here we are, we're back again. We're going to play, a Delphi again. But this time it just felt different. It felt different for us. So, yeah, I think that was a big part of it.
And then you go to Supers at a Delphi, you dominate them in game 1, and you find yourself in that same position like a year ago, 1 win away. They win game 2, and then you get to that if necessary game at a Delphi, and that was a back and forth battle. You get 4 runs you get 3 runs to take the lead, and you're kind of having to deal with a Delphi team that denied you last year. You get the final out, you break through, you win the Super Regional, you're going to Chattanooga. What was those initial moments like, Coach, for you, knowing all the hard work, the heartbreak from the year before has paid off, and you're going to Chattanooga to represent the East Region in your conference?
Well, let me just say this. So this is my 11th season,
Yes.
but 11 years ago when I took this program over, from that very first day, every time I bring a recruit on campus and I talk about our program and where we want to be, I talk about us wanting to be able to compete at a national level, wanting to find a way to get to a World Series, and then you get there and anything can happen. And I've been building, with my coaching staff and with the administration here at the university, working hard year after year. Recruiting is such a hit or miss. You never know until you get them here. And
Yep.
we've had some really, really talented teams in the past that we just couldn't crack through, for whatever reason. Maybe it was lack of chemistry. Maybe it was, whatever, luck, whatever. But it's been a process. It's been a lot of work. And anybody who has had to, do this or has been at that level has had to put in a certain type of work and dedication and sacrifice.
Yes.
And so, we did that. And on top of that, I'm not just the head softball coach here. I'm also the supervisor of athletic facilities. So I wear two hats here at the university, and it's, it can make for some long days. You get there early in the morning and you got to take care of the facilities and make sure, all of our different facilities, our baseball complex, our athletic complex where we have our turf field and obviously our softball complex. We have to, make sure they have everything they need on a daily basis and all the pieces are in place. Then you get to practice and actually work on, what you love, which is the game of softball and preparing for practice and all those things. So trust me when I say there's a tremendous amount of work that goes on here. Didn't happen overnight. It was not something that I always felt like was unreachable, but at the same time, it felt like at times it was like, oh man, if we were that good and didn't get there, what's that going to take? So to make that run and make it happen, all those emotions kind of hit me when we got on the bus and we were heading back south from Adelphi. All those things and just all the messages from all the, the alumni and different, people that have been in our program. It just really hit me all at once. And it was like, man, we finally broke through. Like, we're going to the World Series. I mean, Wilmington University here in little old Delaware, we're heading to the World Series. And that moment, and I shared it with our coaches. It was just special, something I'll never forget.
And it's always great to hear that those long days, the hours, the years that you commit to the sport, and not only you get rewarded, not only do your student athletes get rewarded, but the coaching staff who shared a lot of those hours with you on those fields get to share in that reward too. So I'm sure not only were you excited for yourself, but your team, but you're excited for those coaches who were there with you during those times, during those dark hours where you were wondering, are we really able to reach those goals?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, without the guys that I have helping me coach, none of this would be possible. Just the amount of time they put in, the efforts that they put in, the late night phone calls talking about lineups and adjustments and things we need to do with next practice, things like that. It's without them, there's no chance that we have the success that we've had. So you're spot on with that for sure.
And you referenced, Coach, you bring back your entire lineup. Of course, Lexi Moore, Taylor Gillers, Sarah Miller, All-Americans last season. How nice as a coach to have them kind of being part of that leadership group on and off the field to get your team playing how you want them to play and representing Wilmington both on and off the field.
Yeah, and they do it, and they do it well. They do it without being told. There on any given day when we're practicing, there could be a ball. We could be hitting BP, and Taylor Gillis is in the outfield just shagging balls, and all of a sudden there's a ball hitting the gap, and she's laying full out, diving and catching the ball. The same, with Sarah and Lexi. They're just, we're again BP or whatever situation. They got their face right up in there. They're ready for somebody to try and slap the ball or bunt or whatever. There's no difference with those kids between a practice or a game. Every day in their mind is a game, and they prepare that way every day. They practice that way every day. And it has definitely spread throughout, especially with some of our younger kids that are in the program. They have definitely kind of taken notice. And, on any given day, we might practice, say, at 1 o'clock. At 11:30, more than half of our team, they're already at the field taking BP, working on glove work or footwork without anybody there. They're just there doing it on their own before we even start practice. And that just shows us that the program is heading in the right direction, and it's being led by young people that have bought into it.
And we kind of referenced this, Coach, earlier in our conversation, but seeing those players being self-taught, kind of doing the things without being told by the coaching staff, it makes your job as the head coach and the coaching staffs easier, because you already have these players who are committed to the team and doing what they need to do without having to be given that instruction to do it.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we come in, so every day we have a practice plan. We post it in our dugout, and each coach has a plan. And so when the kids come in, it's usually the veterans that come in right away. They look right at the plan, and they know right away what needs to be done. If we need, screens on the field, if we need balls in the cages, whatever it is, they jump right on it. They're not being told to do it. They just do it. And again, that's just from, it's been handed down to them from, the seniors before them. And it's just, it continues year after year. And now they're doing the same thing, so that when they leave their legacy behind, the next group will hopefully pick up and keep going.
And Coach, you referenced you got a trip to Florida coming up in about a week's time. We're hopeful that we can give you some warmer weather. We've been dealing with some rain ourselves down in the Sunshine State, so we're trying to make sure that it's nice and sunny for your arrival next week. You got Florida Southern, you got Rollins, you got Embry-Riddle, and then you go play a couple games in Melbourne as part of the D2 Classic. Ferris State, Saginaw Valley, then you got Florida Tech, and then you end with Tampa and St. Leo, two of the top 10 programs in the nation. So again, this Florida trip will serve, as you referenced, as kind of like that measuring stick of where you are now and where you want to be as you get ready to go into the meat of your schedule.
Yes, I mean, this schedule is it's one that, we started putting together several years ago. Actually, when I first took the program over, and the coaches before me would always go down to Florida, and we would play, in the spring games and pretty much stay in that area and play teams from all over the country. And I remember the first couple of times I emailed some of the Florida teams down there my first couple of years and said, hey, we're going to be down there. Would love to play you guys. And never got an invite. Our program wasn't at that level yet where it was really in their minds probably worth it to them to really play us when they could play other teams that had already had better records the year before and such. So now every year I'm receiving emails from those teams. Hey, when are you coming back? We'd love to have you back. Want to play you again. So that just shows where we are in our program. But this schedule it's brutal, and we know it's brutal. We're there this year for a total of 11 days, I believe. And we did it that way because we had to add some off days in there, because in years past we would go and play 2 or 3 days in a row before we had an off day. And it was just too much on our players. So this year I extended the length of the trip, for one, to add some more teams, but also to add some off days in there so that our kids can get some rest in there and be able to hopefully compete at their best when we do play. But like you said, yes, we're playing, we're playing all those good teams down there. And in my opinion, their records really don't matter, because they could be 0-10 or 10-0. They're good. They play a lot of good softball, and they're going to be ready to play. They already have games under their belt. So they're going to be kind of well seasoned, and we're going to have to go down there and play our best. And stay healthy, enjoy the process, learn from every game, and see what happens.
And speaking of good softball, your league, the CACC, they've been playing some phenomenal softball over the last few years. Of course, with yourself being the conference champions, you got Bridgeport, Georgian Court, Felician. For those who don't follow the league that closely, Coach, how tough is it for your team to navigate through that league? And you did so with flying colors last year, winning the regular season championship and the tournament. How do you try and keep your focus on the conference tournament and the conference season, because that's what gets you in position to make it to the World Series?
I look at I'm a huge football fan. I love football, and I look at the CACC as the old NFC East. The way it used to be. When you played each other, it was a battle, and teams were, it was give a punch and receive a punch, and that's how it went, and that's kind of how our conference is. The records don't really matter, because the teams that we're playing every day in our conference want to win. Their coaches work hard. They want to win, and obviously, with us having success, they want to win against us even more. So we're getting everybody's best effort. We're not playing teams and they're saying, oh, we're going to throw our number 3 and number 4 against them today. We're getting their ace, and we might get their ace in game 2 as well if she does well in game 1. So it's definitely a challenge for us, but that's the way we need it to be, because if we're going to get back to a World Series and make a run at it, we need to be well tested. We need to see good pitching. We need to see good hitting. We need to see good defense. We need to be challenged so that when we do get to that level, there's not a big difference. It's a matter of the stage and handling all that, but at the same time, the level of play is pretty similar. And that to me is really important. And as you referenced some of the teams, I mean, obviously, Bridgeport with them having their ace pitcher back this year on the mound, the lefty, she throws extremely hard. So she's going to definitely put them back up where they were prior. Felician got off to a rough start, but I believe with Coach Phil moving over there, he's going to get that program going. Georgian Court, again, they've always been strong. They have a lot of really good players coming back. And one that you didn't mention is Caldwell. Caldwell's, Dean Johnson just retired, but a lot of his kids are still there. They got a new coach, young coach there. And I would imagine they're going to be prepared as well. And there's other schools in there that I didn't mention that I'm definitely going to be looking at and making sure we prepare for. The conference has definitely grown in the last 4 or 5 years for sure.
And not only that, Coach, you have a very unique conference tournament where you have the single elimination and the 4 survivors playing the double elimination tournament, which you're going to be hosting in that first weekend of May. So not only do you want to make it into that first round, but you want to get that home field advantage so that way you don't have to worry about traveling somewhere to get to try and host the tournament at home.
Yeah, I mean, it would be nice for us. I mean, obviously we've always, since I've been here, the conference tournament has been held at Georgian Court University. They have 2 fields there, really nice fields. And, now we changed the format. And so, higher seed hosts the first round in a doubleheader. If the higher seed wins, then it's a 1 game. And you move on, and then, like you said, everything's, the rest of the tournament's at our place, and it's great. It's again, we love showcasing our facility. We think we have a pretty nice facility, and so we love that, and just to have the opportunity for our kids to not have to travel and sleep in their own beds and be able to sleep in a little bit longer and just be more comfortable is something that we always look for. So it's definitely going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of work, on both sides. Obviously, the athletic ground side, making sure the facility's ready to go, but also coaching side. But it's something that I've been wanting for a long time, and I'm very happy and thankful that we finally got it to be able to host it at our place.
A couple final things, Coach, before I let you go. Now you got your game under the belt. You got some time off before you head to Florida. What's the message to the team and making sure that they're prepared for this Florida stretch where they're going to see a lot of top-level competition over the 2 weeks that you'll be in the Sunshine State?
I think the biggest thing for us, and this is what I said after our game against Delaware State, is we just have to control the controllables. we need to make the routine plays. Maybe if we make all the routine plays and we catch a couple that maybe we shouldn't catch, or hit a couple balls in some areas and it bounces our way, then we're in the ball game, and then anything can happen. But definitely control the controllables. The two biggest things that I tell our kids every day is that there's two things in life you can control. One is your attitude. The other is your effort. Neither of those take athletic ability. So come to work every day with a great attitude, give maximum effort, and everything else will take care of itself. And that's what we preach to our kids. We're definitely looking forward to it. We can't wait to get down there in some warmer weather, and really can't wait to see, that level of ball again. We're just really excited for it. And we know we have our work cut out for us, but we put this schedule together for a reason. And we want to go down there and throw our name in the hat and see what happens. It'll definitely be fun.
Yeah, definitely will, Coach. And that trip in Florida will start in Lakeland on the 27th as they will take on Florida Southern. They got Tampa, they got St. Leo, Florida Tech. Who's who are some of the Sunshine State Conference toughest opponents, and they got a couple of games in Melbourne as well with Ferris State and Saginaw Valley over in Melbourne. Coach, we appreciate the time. We are certainly excited for your season in 2024, and hopefully we will catch up down the road. Thank you again for your time.
All right, thank you very much. Go Wildcats.
And thanks again to Coach Shehorn for joining me here on D2 Tuesday. A special thank you and a salute as well to Dan Loletta, Athletic Communications of Wilmington, for setting up that interview. And you can understand the excitement and the pride that he has for his team. And with him also not only being the head coach of Wilmington, but also being the facilities manager, having to make sure that not only his stadium and his field is ready to go, but for all the other facilities as well. And he's done a phenomenal job wearing both of those hats. The Florida trip that he referenced, that starts on Tuesday the 27th. They'll go have a doubleheader versus Florida Southern. They'll have a doubleheader in Winter Park the next day at Rollins. They'll have 2 days, have Thursday and Friday off, and then they'll have a doubleheader in Daytona Beach. They'll take on Assumption and Embry-Riddle. They will make the trip up across 95 to Melbourne. They'll take on Ferris State and Saginaw Valley State on Sunday the 3rd. They'll have a day off on the 4th to enjoy themselves, presumably near Melbourne Beach. They'll take on Florida Tech for a doubleheader on the 5th. Then they'll travel up to Tampa to take on the Tampa Spartans, who are the number 3 team in the nation, on Thursday the 7th. And then they'll cap off their Florida trip, taking on Aaron Kimberger and the number 20 St. Leo Lions to wrap up their trip to Florida on Friday the 8th, before returning back up to the East Coast to take on East Stroudsburg on Tuesday, March the 12th. So think about that stretch, folks. You got number 3 at their place, number 20 at their place. You travel back home, and waiting for you when you return back home is the number 17 ranked team in the nation. But Coach Shehorn wouldn't want it any other way, and he has his team primed and ready to go, especially when you knock off a Division I opponent at their place to start the 2024 campaign like they did. A lot of great softball on the Division II side, and we're going to keep talking about it, highlighting those stories, highlighting those teams, those conferences, and those matchups that you look forward to here on D2 Tuesday. Now, I do want to preface this next statement, folks. Presuming our technical issues are worked out between now and next Tuesday, because I know a lot of you with AT&T had a little bit of issues with your cellular service on this Thursday morning, from what I heard. We're going to start doing a more visual podcast on our YouTube channel starting in March. We're kind of working out those details as we speak. We're going to do a couple test runs to see how everything will work out. Well, as soon as we get that done, we will make the announcement and when that will be going live on our D2 Tuesday. And, hey, you'll get to see my face and get to see some of the coaches as well. And we have a lot of coaches that we have on our wish list of potential future guests on D2 Tuesday, especially as conference play starts to really get rolling all across the Division II landscape, as everyone tries to jockey for position and try to be one of those 8 regional champions who will descend to the state of Florida starting on May the 19th for the D2 World Series. So that's the latest update on D2 Tuesday with that note. Again, with it being National D2 Day, I do want to kind of wrap up the show and kind of share everybody, okay, how did I get involved in Division II? We have a podcast, myself and Eric Lopez, where we talk about Division I, we talk about the pro game. How did I get involved in Division II? Well, it's very simple, and if you allow me a few moments to kind of take you back into the way back time machine. Starts back in 2010, where I was in broadcasting school, and Rollins College had sent out an email saying, hey, do you have any of your students who will be interested in broadcasting one of our basketball tournaments, men's basketball tournaments at the time, the non-Rollins games? So I got in via Kevin Baldinger, and then the Associate Athletic Director for Communications, Nate Wyatt. Nate Wyatt, who's been a phenomenal ally while he was at Rollins. We were both at Rollins, and I certainly thank him for that. Nate got me started. I started to do some non-Rollins basketball. Then about a month later, I kind of jumped on with Robert Siegel being his color commentator for Rollins women's basketball, and then occasional filling in for women's basketball, men's basketball when Robert wasn't able to travel with the team. In January of that year, I reached out to the SID who does softball, and he says, hey, you have any need for a softball broadcaster by chance? And he says, sure. So that's how I actually got involved with Division II softball, and specifically with Rollins College. And that year, Rollins College was absolutely a dominant ball club. That was with Christine Roser. Christine Roser Lefevre's the head coach, was in her senior year that year. Was the Johnny's Bench award winner for Division II side in terms of top catchers. Monica Meadows returned back to the team after having the red shirt last year due to an injury. Hillary Brown, Veronica Allred, Meredith Foster, Lana Hunter was on that team. Krista Rodden was on that team as well. Hope Bitzer had transferred in. And Rollins was dominant throughout the regular season. 45-2 were the Tars that year. They hosted regionals for the first and still only time in program history. We went 0-2 unfortunate. Mother Nature had wreaked havoc on that regional. I might tell stories about that regional one of these days during a D2 Tuesday when we get into the postseason. And that's how I kind of got started on Division II. I was broadcasting for Rollins from 2011 to 2018, and then Rollins made the decision that we were going to the Dan Patrick School of Broadcasting. It's kind of interesting how I was a student of a broadcasting school, and that's how I got in. And they brought it of a broadcasting school, and that's how I was. I don't want to say put aside, but how I transitioned to my next role, which happened to ended up being at St. Leo, where Erin Kimberger was a longtime rival of Rollins. She had just hired Brittany Johnson to be an assistant head coach. So that was marked the second time that St. Leo plucked someone from Rollins to be a part of their team. I broadcasted St. Leo for a year and change, and then we all know what happened in 2020 with the pandemic, and that's kind of how I ended my time at St. Leo, and I've still been following Division II ever since. But hey, for those of you who don't follow Division II, I strongly recommend you watch a game. There will be spring games taking place in Winter Haven coming up at the start of March. I may be out in the park. I'm still trying to finalize some things with that. Got some great softball there. One of the marks will be highlighting some of the matchups to watch in the spring games on the Division II side, likely on our next D2 Tuesday, and we'll talk more about that in great detail. But that's going to do it for this National D2 Day special edition of D2 Tuesday. Thanks again to Wilmington head coach Mike Shehorn. Thanks again to Mississippi College head coach Brook O'Hare for joining me on this special podcast. We thank you for listening to D2 Tuesday. And remember, folks, there are more of us and there are of them. And there's great softball everywhere. You just have to look for it. So on that note, now we'll wrap up this special edition of D2 Tuesday. My name is Victor Anderson. I will talk to y'all next time. Happy National D2 Day, everyone. Top podcaster out. Good night, Canada.